Hello and greetings from Phase 101. This video will guide you and show you how to install an Amiga 1200 on a Windows PC. We will be using WinUAE, which is an emulator for the Commodore Amiga. It can emulate all of the Amiga models. WinUAE is free and can be downloaded from www.winuae.net. More details will be given in this video later on. You will also need the Amiga ROM files, or better, as they are known as the Amiga Kickstart files. Also, you will need the Amiga Workbench files, which are the set of disks that give you the Amiga OS. These files are not free, and there are various sources on the internet that provide them. Ask Google to help you out. So, let's start. Okay, so if we go to the WinUAE website, which is winuae.net, and click on downloads, we can download WinUAE. I'm just going to go through a simple description of all this. So the first two, these two, is for installing using the Windows installer. One is for the 32-bit and one is for the 64-bit. So if you have Windows 10, you use the 64-bit. If you have 7 or XP or whatever, you use the 32-bit. These two, the zip archive is if you don't want to use the Windows installer, which most people do. I'm one of them. I just download it and yeah, and unzip it and just run it from there. Just a few things that you need to know once you install it. I'll show you what I mean by that. Let me go to the directory and I bring it up to the screen. So this is my WinUAE directory, okay, and you will need a directory where all your ROMs are, okay. So these are all my ROMs are there. For hard drives, I will come back to it later, but the other stuff like screenshots, states, and saved images, this is something that WinUAE will create for you when you take a screenshot or when you want to save the state of the machine. Plugins are plugins that you can download for WinUAE. Configurations is where all the configurations are. By default, use the default WinUAE .uae, but yeah, you can, as you can see, I have various ones, but we will create one to show you what I mean. I have some Amiga programs, but yeah, that's basically it. When you run it, I'm running it as administrator. You don't necessarily need to do that, but I'm running it as admin. You will be presented with the screen. Let me get rid of the other screens. You'll be running WinUAE with, and the default config, which is this one in my case, will load normally. So if I go to the settings, I should see that. So that's the one that it loads. But we want to create a new default configuration. So let's name. So let's name our configuration as tutorial. Okay, I'm going to save it. It's going to take the settings because I did save as, but if I clicked, so if I say save, it will save it. Instead of using save as, you can just use save, because I'm going to save it as tutorial. It will save as tutorial.uae, and there you go. It took the settings of my default configuration, Okay, so now if I go on CPU, I will find that I have a 68030, but actually an Amiga, because this is what we want to do. We want to configure an Amiga 1200, identical hardware to the Amiga 1200. So we'll make it approximate speed of it. It doesn't have an MMU and it doesn't have an FPU. So those should be switched off. Chipset. It's an AGS chipset. It has to be an exact cycle, exact DMA. These two are quite important. Some people do not realize when they have software and it doesn't work, it's because these settings are ignored. Because you can go here and make it fast as possible, but then if in chipset you tell it to use exact cycle and exact DMA, even though it's fast, it will match the same timings that the original Amiga had. Then we go to the advanced chipset, which you still select compatibility settings. ROM. So all my ROMs are in the ROM directory that I showed you. However, you can select ROMs from here. I mean, this is the directory that I use, but if I click here, the Amiga, the WinUAE already knows where my ROMs are. If for some reason your WinUAE doesn't know where your ROMs are, it's because the paths are set incorrectly. So basically, if you notice, dot slash is where the current starting directory where WinUAE was installed is. It by default knows that it has a ROM directory under this root path. So if I tell it to scan ROMs, remember we are in paths. To rescan ROMs, it's going to go to the directory and it's going to find all the ROMs. In fact, these are all the ROMs that I have. Each comma that you see is a separate ROM for something that there is for the Amiga. But anyway, and everything is used using these directories. So normally, this is how I prefer it to just do a relative path from where it was installed and leave it there. So our config, okay, the tutorial config, which is actually this is going to be AGA Workbench 3.1 Kickstart 3.1, but Kickstart loads before Workbench, so I'm going to be picky and do it. 2 megabyte chip, and we only have 2 megabytes chip RAM. There is no more RAM. That's how we are going to configure it. So if we continue with our configuration, so 68020 none. It looks like I didn't save before. Um, Chipset AGA cycle, yeah, it's all fine. Advanced chipset, yeah, compatibility ROM, Kickstart 3.1. You can, as I said, select from your ROMs. RAM, I'm going to leave 2 megabytes chip RAM, but nothing else. So I should have, these should all be none, none, none. So I should have only 2 megabytes and nothing else. Yeah. Floppies. It only comes with one floppy, the Amiga 1200, so we leave that. Hard drives. These are my hard drives from the previous configuration. I'm going to remove them. I will show you later on how to configure hard drive, but right now I have none. Also, I'm going to tick this box, limit size of directory to 1G. This is just it. Actually, there's no limit. It's just you fool the Amiga thinking that you don't have more than 1G in the directory, which I will come later on um, and explain why. But actually, you can have infinite. It's not an issue. Well, infinite is up to 4G, but yeah. Um, so that's hard drives. Expansion slots, we have none. That's the default because it comes with built-in IDE, so it comes there. Real-time graphic cards, we are not going to use any, so none. Here it tells you the hardware information of it, which is nothing special. So then we go back to the configuration and click save. So now if I bring back the WinUAE directory and I go into configuration, you should see tutorial. There you go. By the way, I save my Amiga. Everything that I do on the Amiga is synced, is in OneDrive basically. So everything is synced to the cloud, whatever I do, and it works perfectly well. I mean, basically I created this in WinUAE and now it's syncing to the cloud, but yeah, whatever. Um, so we have created an Amiga without a hard disk. It has just got a floppy, and which we can boot up. We can switch on actually. It won't boot. It will ask us to insert a disk. So let's try that out. Let's make sure that save. I'm going to load it just to make sure that all the settings are as I set them, as we set them. Yeah, there's no surprises. Yeah, okay. So we can start the configuration. And as I said, it's a basic. Actually, let's do standard A1200 configuration. Going to save it like that, so it takes that in the comments, and let's start it. And now we have a ROM which is 3.1, and the Amiga 1200 is waiting for us to insert the floppy. That's the first thing. Now, you all know that, or you should know that pressing F12 will bring WinUAE back. Okay, you can restart. Basically, I'm going to reset the Amiga and close it down. Okay, so now we are back into WinUAE and that configuration has been closed. So now we want to um, create a hard drive for the Amiga so that we can install Workbench 3.1. It's the best combination, Kickstart 3.1, Workbench 3.1. I mean, nowadays there is also Kickstart 3.14 and Workbench 3.14. However, I am more in favor of sticking to the 3.1 Workbench than to the 3.14. I didn't see any advantages except having nicer items and a bigger hard drive, which doesn't make sense. Which 4G of hard drive, you don't even fill it up with the Amiga, so it didn't make sense at all for me. Anyway, so let's create the hard drive. So click on hard drives. Now, hard drives, there are two options. Either clicking by adding, the first option is telling WinUAE to use a directory, a Windows directory, and fooling the Amiga and telling him this directory is going to be your hard drive, which is the best way in my opinion. And the reason why I'm saying is the best way is because you can go into Windows and manipulate the files also through Windows. And if most of the files are text files, I mean the sources, etc., are text files, so you can manipulate them in Windows with maybe better text editors of today's world, but you still get the benefit of being in the hard drive. Or you can create a file, an HDF file, a hard drive for the Amiga, which I will cover. But first, let's create a directory. So I'm going to give it the name of device name DH0. Label name can be any name, but not system. I'm going to call it Amiga OS. And then I'm going to select a directory, which I already created. It's in my downloads directory, to be honest. And I'm going to call it Amiga OS. So that's basically it. We made it read-write and we made it bootable. Okay, so that's the hard drive of the Amiga. So now the Amiga will think that this directory will be its hard drive. It will be its DH0. Okay. We also set this option earlier where we indicated that the hard drive is not bigger than 1G, so that there is some software that the Amiga is not able to past beyond 1G. So basically like this, we are fooling it and telling it that you don't have a hard drive more than 1G, which is not true. Anyway, we save our configuration again, save, okay. We load it. I'm just going to load it to make sure that I have the configuration that I asked for. So yeah, that's our hard drive. It boots, it's read-write, okay. Um, However, we need to, boot. Although we have a hard drive, it's empty, it has nothing on it. So we need to use Workbench. And Workbench is a set of disks, which is 6 disks, and we need to boot with the install disk. So we go and get the install disk. I'm going to go where I have the um, WinUAE, where I have Workbench there. So install, as you can see it's there, and it's the Workbench 3.1. So that's our Workbench, and we tell it to start. By the way, I've made the floppies so that it will be fast at full speed. This is full speed, this is slow speed. I like it turbo, so it runs at full speed. This is normal speed if you had the real floppy, and this is, I don't know, 800% slower. I mean, I don't know. I just put it at full speed and it runs very, very fast. Start, and the Amiga is going to boot from the floppy drive. We won't see the screen. Below here, I have to exit. It shows me how much CPU I'm using. Amiga CPU, not my CPU here. Frames per second, how much I'm getting, and if I'm using hard drive, if I'm using CD, etc., etc., if it's power, etc. Anyway, so this is the Workbench diskette. Up here, I'm going to select this option, close the backdrop, close the window. Basically, it's nicer Workbench like this. Here, it's telling me that I have 2 megabytes chip RAM, and it allocated 1G of 1G of fast RAM. To be honest, I must have left some option. It doesn't matter, to be honest. There, or maybe I left it automatic to take as much RAM as it wants to. So yeah, it doesn't matter at this stage. I'm going to install Workbench. Um, our hard drive is already partitioned, in the sense we told it that this is the directory where it's going to be installed on Windows, and that is already considered as a partition drive. Okay, so we do not need to use any of the HD setup and HD tools. We just go to install. I'm going to use the English version, of course, of the installer. It's going to tell me that it's going to install Workbench 3.1. Remember, our directory is empty. It's going to install release 3.1, as I said. I'm going to go for expert mode just to show you all the options. You can do novice mode. It will do everything for you. And proceed with install. Install for real, not pretend, and no logging. I do not need to log anything. Um, and then yes, start the install. Yes. Um, I'm going to select English, of course. Select whatever language you need from the list. Proceed. I do not install printers. I do install the British keyboard, however, you can install any other keyboard. You actually later on I will install the American keyboard too, but I'm just going to leave the British keyboard because right now I'm using a British keyboard. On my other laptop I have a US keyboard. So yeah, and remember, um, if you are like me, saving this to the cloud, so your Amiga images into the cloud, that is wherever you go, even if you are at work, you can access it basically and run it um, by accessing your OneDrive. um, yeah, if you have a different keyboard, you can change. Anyway, proceed is going to install the British keyboard. Proceed, and now it's checking to start installing Workbench. So it asked me to install the disk, which is called Amiga Workbench. So press F12, eject the current floppy, install the next floppy, which is Workbench floppy, because I have the other Workbench here. So this is Workbench 2.0, 2.4, 2.10, 3. Anyway, 1.3. I'm installing 3.1. So all these disks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It asks for the Workbench one, so I'm selecting that one. And there you go. The Amiga is very intelligent compared to a PC. It detects what floppy you have inserted by the floppy name, and if it sees that the floppy name is the same as what it's expecting, it starts reading it automatically. You don't need to do anything. And as you see, I didn't press anything. It just continued. When it finishes this installing this floppy, copying this floppy, it will ask us for the next floppy. So we'll do the same process again, pressing F12. As you can see, it's asking for the Amiga local floppy. So press 12, eject, local, and there you go. It will continue by itself. It's installed. Well, it's installed the local. Now it's asking for the extras. So eject, you don't need to do eject, to be honest. I was to explain it more than anything. You can come here and go to extras. It automatically ejects it and edit, and it will continue. Now it will install the extras. If it was doing this from a real floppy, this will take ages. It takes ages to copy, but because we're doing it from a file to PC, I mean, it's very fast. So now it wants the fonts. So we select the fonts one, and it should continue by itself. Now it's asking for storage again, selecting storage, clicking OK, and it will install the storage disk. This is the last disk that it will install of the installer, but we will need to go back to the installer, to the last part of it. So it will ask us for install disk, as I said. So let's go and put back again the install disk. So now it knows it's the install, so it's copying the last part of the installer. It's how to make backups basically. Anyway, it's installed. So now it's telling us to remove the floppy, okay, which we need to. Okay, so we have nothing. And as soon as I click proceed, it will reboot. And it will boot in Workbench as if thinking that it's got a hard drive, which is actually our directory. And voila, the Amiga booted up. It was so fast that you could not see it. Um, and we have our Amiga OS. Our Workbench installed. It's all there, as you see. The interesting part, I'm going to show you our directory in the one that we created and we told it to use, how it looks like, because this is very interesting actually. Let me find it because I closed the window. There you go. Okay. So, as you see, this is the downloads Amiga OS directory, and this is Workbench, our hard drive. Okay, and these directories are common to the Amiga. You cannot delete them. I mean, if you delete them, the OS will not work. This is the auto configuration of the Amiga, so it knows that all the commands are in the C directory. It knows that classes related to things that the OSs use are here. So, for example, for gadgets, it has the classes for the gadgets here. Um, Devices are all the devices here. Um, Expansion fonts. Um, this is for the disk validator. At the time, it's not used. It checks the system. It's like FSCK in Linux, I think, if my mind is correct. Um, libs is where all the libraries are. Local is for keyboard, etc. Different countries. Preferences is where the preferences are. So the Amiga knows exactly in which directory to go and get these things. Rex is a programming language specific to the Amiga actually. Um, Although some people might confuse it with the Rex found in Linux. I will not go into it, but it's to help you automate things in DOS most of the time. S is where the startup sequence is, so the computer, I can show you that in Notepad. This is, you remember batch files in Windows, in DOS. It used to read the, mm, I forgot what was the name, but the particular file, something.bat, that it used to read it and execute the script. It's the same thing. Startup dash sequence is the script, is the file that it executes when it's loading. It's doing nothing here, but nothing special. But anyway, I thought I'll explain it to you. There are some other configurations related to other software, but for example, for the shell, there's a configuration file. If you want, you can edit it. For the editor, there's an editor file, an edit file. For the backup, there's a config file, etc., etc., etc. These are all found in the S directory. Storage is where all the types of storage devices are. System is again some utilities that for the system. T is the temporary directory, like Windows has got temp, Amiga has got T. Tools is the tools commands. For example, you have HD backup to back up your hard drive, calculator, whatever. I mean, certain things. These are all available in your Workbench. I will show you utilities, okay, like the clock, and Workbench startup is these are usually when you have things here is the Workbench starts them up when it starts, but in our case we have nothing. We haven't configured anything. The .info, okay, if a directory is a, so for example, let's go utilities. Utilities has got utilities.info. This is the icon related to the directory. So when you go to Workbench, you should see utilities. So we clicked on Amiga DOS. So we opened the hard drive and it's showing us these are all the dot info directory files that we have in the system. And some files, some directories are not visible. For example, there's no lib directory there. You don't need to see it. You can access that through the shell if you want to, or even there are other ways of accessing it through Workbench, but I'm not going to go through it. But for example, utilities, these are the two things that we have. And actually, the two files that we had, let's go on utilities. So we have clock, and we have multi-view. More, we don't have it there. So more, it doesn't have an icon. But multi-view has got an icon. So if you click on on this icon, which is the .info, actually we are executing this file. If we click the clock, what we see is the clock.info, but then it knows that it can execute clock. So the Amiga from that point of view is quite intelligent when it comes how to map files, icons to a file. The rest is history. I mean, it's the same like using Windows. You make a window bigger, you make a window smaller, okay, you resize it back, this brings it back to forth. The screen, this is something that Windows doesn't have. You can have multiple screens, okay, and you switch between one screen and the other by clicking on this icon. The Amiga uses the RAM disk a lot. So if I want to change, let's say, I'm going to copy this to the RAM disk. Okay, so I have a copy of it on the RAM disk. So if I want to do changes to this file without affecting what's on the hard drive, okay, I can click on it. Usually an icon has got certain information binded to it, as you see. It's saying the font size, font name, etc. When it starts, it reads these things. I can modify this, okay, and run it from RAM instead of running it from the hard drive. And like that, the settings that I make are not permanent, and when I reboot the machine, this will be lost. So it's good for trying settings out, etc., without affecting the actual file that you have. Anyway, we hope you have enjoyed this video and found it useful. Please let us know if you like this video by putting a like and also by telling us what other Amiga videos you would like to see. Thank you for watching.